What's up, everybody? We're back. This time we're going to do an interview. Jordan had a great idea to interview me on my book, which sounds uncomfortable as hell, but let's try it. What's up, dude? How you doing?
Dude, incredibly okay as always, but even more incredibly okay today because of what we're going to discuss. So, um, Ryan typically has the beautiful, eloquent intros. So,
Mm.
I'm going to attempt to introduce this incredible thing that he has um, accomplished.
Oh.
So, my idea, trying to think of how to start this dialogue. I was driving over here too fast and blasting Swizz beats. Just listening to one of his songs, just trying to get my mind right after like 2.5 hours of sleep. And I was trying to think about like how I see you in terms of where your and my relationship really began and where we are now and what you've accomplished or what you've been a conduit of in terms of expressing yourself and your heart through what you have accomplished.
Sure.
And I look at you as like this like unicorn, butterfly, caterpillar thing, and I'm in a non creepy way like pretty thoroughly obsessed with caterpillars and butterflies, and I'll explain. So caterpillars are essentially like morbidly obese insects that need like 73 legs to even move.
Yeah.
And their hopes and dreams of becoming something different or manifesting a different reality is zero. And in a very like almost masochistic, suicidal way, they're like, I'm going to go ahead and bury myself in a tomb. And I'm exhausted of attempting to get from this limb to that branch to that branch. And I'm ready to die. So they bury themselves, and somehow they come out this majestic flying like eagle of an insect. And that's very much how I see you in terms of where you were at in your soul journey. Not to say you were a morbidly obese caterpillar, but in terms of what you were able to do within yourself and wrestle within yourself and truly find yourself and a means to express what you believe truth to be.
Sure.
In a very like philosophical soul spiritual way. And you're a motherfucking butterfly. And like you got glow in the dark wings, like you are soaring like that eagle. And I am just very much in awe and secretly jealous of your capacity and courage to have had the emotional stamina to just face yourself. Essentially, you've looked in the mirror for years in a very brutal way and said, you've asked, who am I? What does that even mean? And how do I become that?
Yeah.
And you've done that, and your medium of expressing your truth is writing. And I'm just so thoroughly, incredibly honored to be not only someone who loves you and cares about you, but I feel very intimately attached to this journey with you. And I got to be, as you said, the guinea pig and read every chapter independently. But now that it's this whole complete thought of your soul, like this is what it means to become whole.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of in this organic interviewee style. By no means I'm going to flatter myself as an interviewer, because that would not be good for anyone to be on the receiving end of that interview. But where I really want to start is at the beginning, which is the title, Godspeed. And that phrase is something I was never really familiar with prior to you.
Oh, really?
Well, I've heard it, but like the actual like symbolism of it, like never really meant anything to me. So
Gotcha.
I just want to hear like a summary of like specifically why this word, because it stands out, it really does, and how you use it in each chapter and how you so thoroughly compassionately walk the reader through this journey with yourself in such a brutally humble and intimate way. So you open with Godspeed, and the first phrase, like the subtext of that is, it's a fellow sojourner's hope for wholeness.
Yeah.
which I already have problems with because the whole hope thing
Yeah.
is not in my soul's vocabulary, and I really struggle with what that means. So
Sure.
just how you start, it's so heavy. The Godspeed, a fellow sojourner's hope for wholeness. So how do you summarize why someone needs to put the brokenness together, and how does someone even attempt to have any rate of speed with God in attempting to become whole? You know what I mean?
Sure, I gotcha. It's funny you've never heard that before. You'll
Yeah.
see it in all these movies and stuff
Yeah.
now that you're aware of the word.
Exactly.
Because it's, it's not just something from The Rock. When I think of The Rock, you ever see that movie with Nicolas Cage,
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
Speed, Godspeed?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's what I always think of when I first heard the word. But anyway,
Yeah.
to me, the word is this. So, like, anytime you saw like an astronaut getting ready to go on a rocket, that'd be the first thing people would say to you is Godspeed, right? Because you're getting ready to embark on this crazy journey, this thing that's like pushing humanity forward, right? Stepping out into something very uncertain. You don't know if the rocket's going to even make it out of the atmosphere or whatever it is, right? So it's a daunting task, and it's an adventurous task. So for me, the word Godspeed is a perfect fit, and why I've stuck so hard to it is because I don't think there is a more challenging area than to really get into the self-examination. So when you are willing to really look inside and start asking these questions and hearing these questions, there's not an area that is more difficult and challenging that will try to pull you away from it.
Yeah.
Whether it's fear, whatever it is, will try to keep you from pursuing it. So for me, it was really fitting because I think, when I really started to really look inside, and it's funny because like my journey, like I always was the kid who wanted to know how things worked. Like I would take apart my computer or whatever just to see like how it worked and put it back together. And even with faith, like I was always asking questions about stuff, right? Like before, I really, I guess, lost my faith for a better term, I was really a teacher in apologetics. And apologetics is, arguments for why your faith is, valid or rational. So like it was, I dug, but it was always
You're like
within
a soul lawyer.
but I was always pursuing that, right? But it was always in kind of the safe sphere until, I talk about it in the book where like, I guess a thought came into my mind that made it something that I had to go outside the safe bubble.
Yeah.
And that's where it really gets challenging and hard. And that's where like that Godspeed word is something where it's like, you're going out into the unknown now.
Yeah.
And the unknown for me was the unknown. Everyone in my family's Christian and believes the same stuff. To challenge that at a fundamental level is something scary, especially when I'm in seminary wanting to teach this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's to go back to what I titled the book as the Sojourner's Hope for Wholeness is that's, I guess that's my desire for writing it. I wrote it because it was on my heart to write.
Yeah.
Regardless if people like it or hate it, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's my hope that like, when my son picks up the book, that he can read it and see what his dad wrestled with and see why you should wrestle with these kind of things and the benefits that could come. And it's not a matter of just like, pick up this book. It's the method to find wholeness.
Yeah.
It's an attempt of many attempts to ask these questions and to seek out what that even means. And that's why it's really open-ended in the book, because it's not about giving answers.
Yeah.
It's about having that light bulb turn on of just like, wow, I wonder why I don't think about these kinds of things. Why don't I?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. So anyway.
Well, I think what's so radical about your story is there was such a safety net. There were so many reasons to not do what you did in terms of not just attempting to write this book, but prior to the book ever being written, to even start this journey to attempting to find wholeness, because you were in an environment where every emotional influence you had in your life was so committed to this like path of quote unquote non-denominational Christianity. Like everyone in your life, for all intents and purposes, says, I know what truth is,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't need to be more enlightened than where I'm at, because I
Yeah.
already know, I already won. Like the finish line, the journey is complete. I've become whole because I said I believe in Jesus and I accept him into my heart. John 3:16.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so for you to be in a position of apologetics, and like you said, you were like this, you were in this like garage getting dirty with all the oil, breaking apart the engine of your soul.
Mm.
And it's like you come out from under the hood and you're in seminary and you're looking around at all these other like architects of the soul and engineers trying to build the soul's,
Yeah.
all this alchemy. And you're like, dude, we're missing something here. Like this I think this car is going to run, but I think there's a lot of parts missing.
Yeah.
And everyone else probably is just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Or in their words, like, oh, you're just lost.
Yeah.
You're just lost. The car clearly runs.
Yeah.
But you're like, I think it should run better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that Elon Musk epiphany where he's like, we're going to destroy our world if this whole car thing, diesel thing keeps going. Our atmosphere is dying. Let's do some like natural energy. The Lord gave us a sun to plug into. Let's figure out how to use this thing.
Yeah. Yep.
So you're Elon Musking the soul. You're trying to Tesla. How do we tap into the real source of power?
Yeah.
Where is that?
Mm-hmm.
Where is that outlet? How do I plug it in?
Yeah.
So that's what's so amazing about you. Had every reason not to start the journey, and you did.
Mm.
And the imagery you start with the book with the gazer, quote unquote, is so, it's so beautiful and it's so powerful. I just want to hear you summarize like your introduction into the book, and you really are inviting people into this journey with you from a standpoint of like, we're on the same page. Just because I wrote some thoughts down and published them doesn't mean I'm any further along or any further back from, like, we're all in this thing together trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's what's so powerful about how you articulate your truth, is because it's so compassionate and it's so empathetic. And at no point do I feel like you are on a pedestal. I feel like, if anything, you are having a recognition of how thoroughly you don't know, and you're not attached to being the definer of what truth is. You have just such humility to be like, we're all trying to become whole, and I'm going to fillet my soul in a means to help you realize, like, you're not whole either, but I believe we can become more whole.
Yeah, totally.
So with the imagery of the gazer, like, how are you really inviting them in to recognize that there is an issue?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the whole premise of this information, is saying you're asleep in your soul and I want to help you wake up.
Yeah, sure.
How does someone recognize they're asleep, and how does the gazer play into that?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think, it's like they say, you want your therapist to be in therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want anybody to be the guru and be perfect, because no one's perfect. And it's not that I'm a therapist or somebody who knows. The only thing I look at myself as different is I'm someone actively seeking. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's a lot of people who aren't actively seeking. Or if they are actively seeking, they're stuck in their bubble in which they actively seek. So the whole point of that, the thought experiment of the gazer, is one of the most powerful things about being human is our imaginations. When we really tap into it, when we really start imagining the future and how we want it to be, and how, not just what we want in our lives, but what we want the world to look like or anything else, is when we create some of the best stuff.
Yeah.
Right? That's where we challenge ourselves and grow. So the whole point of the thought experiment was, how do you get that imagination to turn on in this type of area? So it's I guess a sci-fi way of doing that.
Yeah.
Where you can, if you actually go with what I'm trying to do, it's asking these questions like, what would I do in that situation? And the thought experiment isn't a very long thought experiment. It's followed by a bunch of questions and thoughts, because if you can actually think about it, and actually think about the questions, then it might cause that light bulb to turn on. And to me, that's what it's all about.
Mhm.
It's about understanding that, like, we're all on this journey trying to figure things out and why we're here and all these different things. And sometimes we stop and we
Mhm.
just settle, or we fall asleep, like you said, or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's just remembering why we want to keep pursuing it, and it's not about necessarily getting to the end. It's about just the pursuit.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what it is. It's just like, if you can have a thought experiment, and I talk about in the book, where, like, that's one of the things I learned about Albert Einstein, was that he um, would constantly have thought experiments. Like, that's how he figured out relativity, and when he was talking about, like, gravity and acceleration and gravity being the same thing, because he would actively, like, put himself to sleep and dream these things up and then wake up and write about it,
Mhm.
because he would constantly think and have these thoughts. And if we can do that for ourselves, man, it's going to lead us out of this pain and misery that we're in. And I think that's kind of where I start. I thought starting with, like, this thought experiment to get your imagination flowing, and then kind of diving into why you should want to care with pain, and, like, understanding more about pain and why it's this I guess this thing that's we're so attached to. It's such a part of our lives, yet we don't really know how to free ourselves, or can we? It's just this big ugly mess.
Yeah.
So the point is one, is there a way to get your imagination going when it comes to pursuing a better way of living? And, is there an answer to why you really would want to? Because it's a
Mhm.
very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
You need to have something fueling that desire to go. And if it's not strong enough, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think how you start this dialogue is focusing on pain and understanding one's relationship with what pain is, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, all the different ways you dissect what pain is. And I think the only reason we don't do anything is because there's a layer of pain attached to it. Like, that's the buffer. Like, that's why there is a dead end in your soul's attempt to go further with some spiritual evolution. Is like, there's no more pavement here. I'm going to stop.
yeah.
But that's I think something that's so beautiful about what you really hit home here is everyone is responsible to pave their own path.
Mm.
And it's no one's responsibility to inject themselves into someone else's life and basically make them wean off your tit of whatever spiritual enlightenment you have.
Yeah.
And that's I think people are so afraid to be alone in this path.
Mm.
And to say, I am a free human being in my soul because I've thought my own thoughts
Mm.
and I've had the courage to do so.
Yeah.
And I think why people love religion and love organized thought around spirituality is because someone's doing the work for you, you know?
Yeah.
And there is a massive amount of comfort to know you don't have to be the one who's responsible for your heart. I'm going to go tithe and be attached to this spiritual group, and ultimately it's that pastor or that guru or that priest's responsibility to cultivate that little fire inside of my heart. And if the fire goes out, they did something wrong.
Yeah.
To take that level of ownership, like, you're supposed to nurture and kindle and add those logs to that fire to keep going.
Mm.
So what is your opinion in terms of understanding how pain and understanding what pain is in my opinion, it's the number one thing you need to understand if you want to have any success with growth, period, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your relationship with pain is 100% going to reflect what you grow with any area of your life,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
So, spiritually, specifically with pain,
Mm-hmm.
your relationship with it, and how would you, without like reading verbatim in the book, like, how would you encourage someone to even want to attempt to get in a painful situation like this? Like, reading this is painful because it takes away all that false sense of security, and it makes you look in the mirror in a way that is painful, because you realize how much you want to wean off a tit. You want to have access to just an udder
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
milk juice, of
Yeah.
just comfort.
Yeah.
And how do you encourage someone to say, get the boobs away from my mouth? I want to create my own lactation sensation.
Sure. The imagery is great, man. No, I think in understanding pain, it's understanding the difference between like pain and suffering, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that suffering is an optional part of life. Pain is inevitable,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because and so many of us don't realize that.
Say it again.
Well, it said that pain is inevitable, but suffering doesn't necessarily have to be. Because, it's like I talk in the book about like, physical pain and psychological and spiritual, but like it doesn't have to get to this point that like it's embedded in our soul.
Yeah.
Where we have to have a medication, kind of like you're talking about, in order to just survive.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point I don't know if we really understand about pain, is like I don't think we're aware that there's things that happen in our life, whether traumatic or something else, or bad belief or whatever it is. It gets in there, and next thing you know, your whole life reflects that it's in there, but we're oblivious to it.
Yeah.
And your life is literally being drugged down, and it's just like we're not aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
We do all these things to try to make it go away.
Yeah.
And the problem is it becomes a life of medication dependency. And then it's just a matter of what is around you that you can be dependent on, and is that going to make your life worth living? Yeah. It's a really crummy way to live. I mean, who wants to live that way?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really living. You're surviving, like we were talking about before this started. And that's the thing. Pain makes us survive. And there's a point where I talk about like suicide, right, in the book, because I didn't even know that I quoted a lot of different people who had committed suicide until I was talking to the person who helped me edit. And it was funny. I was thinking about it. I'm like, man, I didn't even realize that. But then,
it's so heavy.
Yeah, it helped me go back and reflect on suicide a little bit, because it's easy for us to be like, oh, that's just such a selfish thing to do or whatever, right? Just to kind of separate ourselves that way. But the problem is just because someone can't bear the pain anymore doesn't mean we should look at them and go like, well, that was such a selfish thing for you just to take the selfish way out. Yeah. It's like, well, you should ask yourself the same question. Are you just surviving? And are you good because you found a good medication for your pain and that person couldn't? Yeah. Because that's the thing, right? I mean, I believe that to be free is to understand that we don't have to suffer like that. There is pain that will come. It will come. Life is full of pain, change, and just difficulties constantly. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to be this horrible suffering that happens. And that's the thing. If we can understand that there's an optional way out of it, then it changes everything. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just in the culture we're in, it's just like, just go get your next medication if one doesn't work. Yeah. Just keep going until you find one that medicates you enough where you can keep going. Yeah. And to me, it's just like, that's a really, I don't accept that. Yeah. I don't accept that it's just about finding your next drug. Yeah. And so that's the whole point, right? Yeah. Is to understand that like there are ways out. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Yeah. So.
Well, not to get sidetracked, but I'm like, it hit me like a freight train, just the correlation between the people you quoted and them committing suicide. I think it's very telling that clearly this journey is painful,
Oh, yeah.
And to death.
Yeah.
And I think you look at people who have influenced us through writing and other mediums of expression. There is a lot of people who get so deep in their psyche in wrestling with these things to where they are drowned in the reality that there's an inevitability that there's going to be a higher percent of people that never tap into meaning, and it's suffocating. Yeah. And it makes sense to turn off the switch forever.
Yeah.
And what differentiates you from, because I know I don't know your future and what that's going to entail, but like knowing what I do know of your heart, like I don't think suicide is on your horizon. So, and I don't say that lightly.
I know it's
what I'm wanting to focus on is, what is it that you found within yourself and your own search and hope for wholeness,
Sure.
what is it that has freed you from needing that exit strategy?
Sure.
Because you've found something that has enough meaning in it to keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
So, in talking about pain, what I talk about next is love.
Yeah.
Okay. Because to me, it's exactly like you're talking about, right? Like, this is heavy stuff. Sometimes, you look at somebody like David Foster Wallace is someone I quote, right? And he was such a brilliant human being, and to see the way his life ended. But the reason I talk about like love is because to me it points to something so core. And I think as a father, and you as a father, it's like we get the ultimate example. I mean, the blessing of having a child to me is like the ultimate form of just showing what that love looks like, right? Where you can love this little human being so much that it hurts a little bit, where you see him grow up and you're sad, but you're happy.
Yeah.
It makes me think Inside Out with the yellow blue orbs. I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
That's me all the time. I'm constantly sad or just like full of joy.
Yeah.
Right. But it shows you something that rises and cuts through the pain and makes it worth it. Because to me, it's just like when you could connect to someone like this little person, or some friend or family member or your spouse, whoever that may be, or yourself. Like, to me, that's the thing that shows you like it's worth the ride. It's worth the ride because that joy and something is just something where like I don't want to miss a beat of what those little dudes do. I don't care if they're sitting there playing with Legos or doing their Christmas program, like whatever it is. Like, it's just like I could care less about myself because I want to see more of that. And to me, I will buy that ticket every time.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. That's what makes it worth going. But the problem is a lot of us don't have that.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of trying to understand, like, what does it mean to love? What is love?
Yeah.
Like, that is such a core part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because if we have such a jacked up version of it, then, I mean, all we're going to see is that thing that's painful, that sliver in your hand that you feel every time you touch something. You're just like, I just want the sliver to go away. Yeah. And to me, it's just, there has to be something more captivating. And and understanding love to me is that. It's that ultimate connection piece and that ultimate state of being of where you're just so present with everything.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
100%. So not to make this complicated or overly dramatic, but I'm a decently good case study for like the audience that reads this that really struggles with the idea of love, and coming from the perfect description of you as a father and what that did to your soul's physiology. Like, it changed you, and you saw such meaning in having a child. And what does that mean for your life and the meaning attached to that? So the fortunate ones of us who I'll just be the guinea pig here, is like, what would you say to me, someone being, so much of my struggle stems from the fact that like my father so thoroughly hates himself and never ever got a fragment of a moment that made sense in terms of familial love or anything. Like, he was broken in one of the most brutal childhoods I've ever heard of. But how that translates is because he hated himself so much, he was a sweetheart and paid that forward to me. And it made me, not to be dramatic, but it got me to that suicide point, and to where I was so starving for love that I literally stopped eating for the longest. Like, my body shut down. Emaciated, and it was a physical manifestation of how thoroughly I didn't understand what love was. And then to have my father have so many fucking chances, him being a pastor and like just having so much support, like his church like funded him to go get like thousands of dollars of therapy, and it did jack shit. And he had every chance to figure his shit out. And ultimately he said to me, and like how I translated everything, he's like, you're not fucking worth it. And I don't even want to understand how to love myself, because I don't even want to understand how to love you.
Yeah.
And um, that's something I have to deal with all the time and think about. And I feel like so much of my soul's journey has been faking it till I make it, because I know intellectually love is, it is the soil which all truth grows from. If you don't have a good soil, quote unquote, you don't have a good understanding of what love is.
Sure.
Like, how am I supposed to plant those seeds and nurture them and grow them and expect those crops
Sure.
to actually give me sustenance?
Yeah.
So, and obviously you know me intimately, so I'm just trying to give you a devil's advocate for a lot of people's realities that never even met their father and never met both their parents and were orphaned, and all the scenarios that fuck up people's conception of what love is.
Sure.
Like, how does someone in that position tiptoe into this? Easy question.
Yeah, that is a tough question, man.
But just specifically because you're talking about pain, and then the sequence is love.
Yeah, yeah.
So if experientially, because everything you talk about, like, these are ideas that are experientially translated.
Yeah.
And people, when reading this, they don't know how to turn off their own experiences and translate what you're saying. So how does one, without having warm fuzzies attached to anything with maternal love or lack thereof, like, if I'm starting at square one with this idea of love, like, how do I tiptoe into that?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, dude, that's why I think, like when I start with pain, I give that metaphor of like the tornado thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. Because to me, that's what it's like when you have something so painful that it keeps you from getting to that place. I mean, that's what it's like. I describe it as the tornado in the distance that you're constantly bunker diving to avoid. Right. So to me, to even get to that place is to figure out how do you confront the tornado going on. I mean, that's the only way to do it, because otherwise you're never going to get there. But it's almost like if you think of love in a different way too, where I believe that love is inevitable if we can learn to just let the parts of ourselves go. Like, the more you let go of so many things that we're holding on to, who you think you are, the justice you feel like you need to have, whatever it is, the more it's inevitable. The more you understand and learn to accept the reality around you, the more you cannot help but love. It's like, self-hatred has a lot to do with a really bad identity. You could call it the ego or whatever it is. The more you see what's under all that, the more you cannot help but love yourself. That's why, like, when you hear people talk about self-love or whatever it is, it just sounds so fluffy and stuff, right? Because it's about like, oh, I just need to love myself. I'm going to give myself affirmations and stuff every day. Where to me, it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of deep understanding. When you understand why you just yelled at someone at the road, what's going on when that happens, when you understand so deeply about who you are and the way you act and your default programming and everything else, that's where you cannot help but love yourself. It's a matter of how deep do you need to go to get there, and how much stuff is in there that you have to work through. So to me, it's one, understanding that everyone's got their crap, everyone's got their reasons for why, and it's a really tough question, dude, but like, it's a matter of how do you confront the pain? And that's where it's between you and God, or whatever you want to call it. It's you being brave enough to go sit, close your eyes, and just seek out your soul and see what that soul's going to tell you when you close your eyes. And whether it's to lead you to a therapist, or to get you to wrestle with a question, or to journal, or whatever it is, like, that's the starting point, because it's the journey inside that you need to go down. And once you get through that stuff, you realize that all that crap is just crap. And it's like, you don't need to hold on to it, because if you can understand who your dad was that wounded you so deeply, if you can understand that, you wouldn't be wounded deeply, because you would see the abused father who reacted to that abuse on you. It would free you, because the more you understand, the more you're free. There's a part where I talk about that Vietnamese monk Han, where he talks about the size of your heart. The problem is, for us, our size is so small. And it's like, once you can expand to get to that point, then it's like you can understand all this kind of stuff. So to me, it's like, it is such a lack of understanding that I think it's we don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
Because the stuff we have is heavy, man. And especially if you're just surviving every single day and you're just stuck by the traumatic past that you've had,
Yeah.
and you just cannot get away from that trauma,
Mm-hmm.
then you're basically stuck on medication until you find a way to enter into it.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. It's like, how do you do that? And it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's uncomparable and subjective, because you have to look at somebody and never try to compare it, just to be like compassionate.
Yeah.
That person's going through hell.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you just help them alleviate that a little bit, to understand that, like, dude, it's worth going through.
Yeah.
There's a freaking rainbow on the other side.
Yeah.
It may seem like hell. You're going through freaking Mordor to drop that ring in that volcano.
Yeah.
But once you drop that ring off, my God, you're going to feel way better.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if that it really answers your question.
Well, it does, and it really hits on how I have attempted to, and for me, it's a daily choice of forgiveness with him specifically, and his influence on my life was almost to death. So I know it's going to be a long journey of, like, it's a scar, it's a soul tattoo thing, his impression on my soul. Sure. And I've accepted that. But what I would say is, just rewording it, is the only hope that I would offer, and hope is something that I offer very timidly to people because of how I see it. But where I found freedom with attempting to create some soil in my soul to grow my understanding of what self-love is I found out the hard way for decades that I'm not going to grow spiritually at all if all I do is stay in the arena of my own pain and just ping pong back and forth, trying to understand the pain and repackage it and say, oh, today I'm doing gooder and I'm just going to try harder. And I had to get out of my own way, because I was trying to find the source of healing within myself, because the pain was in myself. And I had to do the thing that is never organically comfortable, which is, well, where did the source of the pain come from? Okay, it's my father. Okay, what do I want to do with that besides extend resentment and bitterness? Mm-hmm. I have to stop thinking about, I have to be selfless. I have to stop thinking about my own pain and say, I bet you he didn't always want to be this. I bet you he didn't grow up saying, I hope I have a son and I fuck him up so bad that he wants to kill himself. Yeah. And that I don't have the balls to stick around, and I'm going to give up on him and leave and not give a fuck. I don't think he started out that way. that is created, you know? Yeah. So I tiptoed down his journey and said, where does his pain come from that I'm receiving? And sure enough, he has this horrific story. And now myself as a father, my heart breaks for him to know that what happened to him as a child. Yeah. And there's a part of me that doesn't give a fuck about my pain. It's like a part of me wants to go like defend him and be like, how the fuck did you treat a child like that?
That's right.
You know? Yeah. And allowing myself to feel that compassion for him, it takes away the power of what his role was in my life. Because I'm like, dude, you're just another dude in the world who bow chicka bow wow with some chick. Yeah. And I came out of that. And I was in your wiener, bro. That's heavy, you know? And but there's the freedom is not found within yourself. And in the sense of, your freedom is not found in your pain, because the only thing there is pain. Mm-hmm. You need to get out of there and stop trying to attach the pain, like pop that bubble, get out of the way and say, why is the pain here? Find the source and keep tiptoeing. And that takes so much courage. Yeah. Because there's a part of healing that says, I'm not going to let this go until there's an amends here. There is a justice. Like, someone's paid the price for the penalty, and there's this like judicial system in our soul that says, I'm not going to fucking heal until that motherfucker says sorry enough to where I can forgive him. Yeah. It's like justice. I live every day in a state of, I don't get that apology. I probably never will. Yeah. I accept that. Mm-hmm. I don't need him to say sorry because I understand him and I had the courage to seek understanding.
Sure.
And I now have peace sometimes. So that's what I would just say is like there is hope to the extent you have courage attached to your desire to have hope.
Sure.
Hope is not fluffy. Hope is earned. You have to create it
Yeah.
with compassion and understanding.
Yeah.
And that is a selfless journey. So it's there's this duality of like in your book, it's so much about like self-created truth and understanding pain within yourself. There is a brutal dance of letting that go, but also being with it and learning to respect the pain and love it. You know?
Yep. Yeah.
So, but after love, you know, you thoroughly dissect so many aspects of this soul journey, but not to fast forward because I mean we could literally sit here for days and just dissect every aspect of all the things you wrote. And I know it was brutally hard to condense all these thoughts into 224 pages, you know, because it's like 34 years of thought, you know,
basically, yeah.
But talking about pain, talking about love, and I don't want to give away too much of how beautiful this is, you know, but at the end of this, you know, you're taking someone on a journey to essentially finding that soul enlightenment and finding that freedom to seeking, and this is the hard part, is like seeking the divine, like the God, open-ended, like the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Like how does that element, not to fast forward through a lot of the book, but it's like how does one's relationship with the divine or God or the universe, how is that correlated like to this journey of like the Godspeed thought?
So how is it correlated? Meanings.
Meaning, is this an essential element for all the atheists out there?
Yeah.
Like how important of a puzzle piece?
Yeah. When it comes to that, so yeah, it's weird, man. So that's why I talked about the divine as the divine and not God or anything else,
Yep.
because there's plenty of people that want nothing to do with some sort of creator figurehead thing or
Yep.
whatever you want to call it, right?
Yep.
But it makes me think of like Sam Harris's book on spirituality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like it's the same thing he's attempting to do in that book. He's someone who is very scientific, does not believe in God or anything else, but still looks at meditating and getting in touch with the spiritual side of you. That's the same thing I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just trying to peel back this freaking ambiguous word that we use that we don't even have a real meaning for anymore, and trying to understand like what the hell we're even talking about when we're really talking about it. Yeah. Like it's someone to understand when you, like you say you're a Christian or something, right? Like you understand, okay, so that means you live Jesus or whatever else. Or if you're an atheist, that means, okay, you just don't believe that there's things are just here for whatever reason. But there's still, like, regardless, like you could take it at the most basic level. There's still some connection to this mysterious thing holding all this stuff together. I don't care if you believe that there's a white dude with a beard in the sky or not. Like there's a reason, like when you look in a telescope, you see all these atoms together. Like what are keeping them together? Like that's what I'm talking about. And so the whole point on like just trying to get to the most basic level of something we all agree on, but we don't talk about it because we just talk about the things that we don't agree on. Mm-hmm. And we want other people to come into our group. Mm-hmm. So it's more of just, so how do you realize that connecting to this is a need, right? It's a need. I don't care if you believe in God or not. It's trying to like just at least wrestle with that mystery of like what's holding all this together. Because it is a need, and it's a need of tapping into your conscious, your soul, whatever it is, when you can sit and meditate and you can just calm your mind and let it go. And you just have this sense of something else. And the growth that comes from that connection to whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Like to me, that's what it's about. Yeah. It's about learning to drop the name calling here and just learn to just seek out that. And that's why I think I talk about it, you know, about like connecting to the fullest reality. Like to me, that's what Hegel talks about when he was talking about God. It's just basically getting to this place of like, what does that mean to experience where I'm at, like right now with you here talking on a microphone
Yeah.
going out to the end, like what, like I'm trying to wrestle with all this stuff, but being willing to look into the mystery and to drop the need to wanting to cling on to something. Like I want to cling on to something here because it's a lot safer. You know, it's I want to have something I can worship or do whatever, and it's letting go of that because to me, it's, you could call it God or the divine, is the tension of the mystery that we're in, and it's just like it's releasing and just being like, yeah, that's what it is. Like I don't have to cling; I could just let go.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what the whole point of the chapter is. It's a very difficult thing to try to write a chapter like that, especially coming from a faith
Defining something
background. Well, it's just,
non-definable.
yeah, but I'm not like, I don't want to, I'm not trying to like rip apart anybody on what they
No.
believe or anything, but it's understanding that like there is a basic root here, and that whatever floats your boat, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it or whatever else, just understand more of like what you're doing, and if you're doing certain things in a way that's actually harmful to you, that's all.
Yeah.
Because it can, and that's the thing. It's just the awareness piece of like there's a path, and a dangerous path when it comes to pursuing God, that I don't know if we really realize, you know, and that's all. And it's just being aware of that is an optional path that someone could be on, and just is in that question, is it me or not? That's it. So anyway,
well, it's incredible, man. It's to have the courage to try to define something that is undefinable, and having the compassion to say, look, I grew up in a privileged first world reality where my lens of spirituality was very focused in a way, and I had the courage to get out of that. And there's billions of people in the world seeking the divine in their own way, because that's the environment they grew up in.
Yeah.
And there's a common thread here, though. There's a reason why the majority of people want to cling to something higher than themselves, you know? And there's the thoughts that I have are coming from somewhere. Where's my soul's antenna connected to? And going down that slippery slope and trying to find those answers, it's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And the way you compassionately package it up and encourage someone to just explore and tiptoe into it is, I mean, it's second to none, dude. Like I've been the victim of reading a lot of self-help books. I've myself has needed a lot of help.
Yeah.
You know, and in no way at all do I feel like this is your attempt at just helping someone. Like, here you go, slugger. Like, let's go out back and throw the pigskin around, and hopefully you'll feel better at the end of it. You know, you're just thoroughly defining, you're thoroughly aligning your heart with the reader's path, and so compassionately engaging with them and saying, like, you and I are no different, and no matter what you align to, you and I will always be connected.
Yeah.
And I want to offer you whatever I can, and what I have received from my antenna, and help you help yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the most beautiful part of how you package your truths, is you don't attach yourself to saying, I have dug in a cave and found some mineral deposit, these jewels that no one else has found. I'm going to sell them to you now. And case in point is, like, you've had the humility and the courage to like make this free and available to anyone who wants to read it, because you're not trying to say, I hung out with God, it was dope, he told me some stuff, and I'm gonna take a profit margin on that.
Yeah.
Like, what's so powerful about what you did is you thoroughly got out of the way of anything being able to taint this and your ambition with this. Like, this is not a Joel Osteen, like Kanye West Sunday service, buy your tickets to come hear about Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bananas how we've packaged up spirituality in the world, and you're so thoroughly disconnected from anyone being able to say, well, you're to blame for, you know, you're trying to harbor or profit or what. Like, you're just so thoroughly like, I don't give a fuck about how you want to define me or package me up.
Yeah.
I'm just giving as much as I can. I selflessly am just trying to offer myself and get out of the way.
Yeah.
And this might be the first time in the history of human beings that this has been done. You know, I know that's obviously probably been done, but in terms of the intentionality and the purity with how you're doing it, is so,
at least an attempt at that.
You know, and that's what's so beautiful about it, and that's why you can't not trust you. because you're giving, and that's what love is it's truly extending and sacrificing self for the betterment of others without needing or wanting anything in return.
Yeah.
Like there is no more pure definition of what love is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to provoke thought about is, do we find meaning solely in just going on this journey and just deconstructing it within our soul? Or is there an element of, okay, if my life is a slingshot and day one, I had the courage to start dissecting my soul, and you go through all the chapters you have here and all the different ways that you believe someone needs to dissect their soul. In my heart, I feel like that's like this slingshot where you're just like finding yourself, having the courage, pressing. There's all this tension built up. And is a part of finding your truth and finding what that means, the releasing of that stored energy with the slingshot and fully becoming yourself. There is one of the books we bonded over at the beginning of our relationship was The War of Art. And it talks about that one struggle to express their art and their truth through whatever medium. And being someone who has been defeated by this force out there, that how is life fully lived, finding a purpose, finding a divine path? Like does God, the universe, he, she, it, is there something that is like written in some book somewhere that says, okay, Jordan Cruz, okay, his job is this. If he doesn't do that, fucking waste. What a wash. You know?
Yeah.
Like that's what people, when they attach themselves to spirituality, that's what cripples them so much, is like, I'm not doing it right. There's something I'm supposed to be doing, this divine purpose, this path. And if I don't do that one thing, then I failed at life. But the reality is, like, until you learn how to be without doing anything specifically, you'll never be free.
Yeah.
So how do I simultaneously become enlightened and just be myself and do the work that is in my heart to do? Because I think you are the poster child, you are the cover model for this principle. Like, you wrote this book, you pressed into your heart, you expressed your truth, like you painted the picture that was in your heart to express artistically through this. So is the final chapter, not the final chapter, but is this part of the journey in expressing yourself, is that something that is a telltale sign that like you're on the right path?
Well, I almost look at the metaphor a little differently. That the dissection idea and deconstruction makes me feel like it's like a house you're taking apart down to the foundation to rebuild something. And I don't necessarily know if that's really how I see it at this point. I see it more as like an uncovering of something. More like it's like you're digging to uncover something that's buried below, but's been, like what do they call those things? Those rocks that you crack open with all the crystals inside.
Agate?
Yeah, something like that. But it reminds me more of something like that. It's like you're working on chipping away the rock, and then once you crack it open, you're like, oh damn, I didn't know this was in here.
There I am.
I just thought it was a rock.
Yeah.
Right? So it's more, I see it more like that, because to me, it's a matter of how much you need to release in order to get to that. And that's the thing, it's just releasing thing after that. It's like, and that's when you could actually be whoever it is you are, right? Whether, I use plenty of examples. I use a lot of basketball examples in the book of Kobe or Michael Jordan or something, right? Because it illustrates the idea of like having this awesome talent buried that if you just uncover it, it's amazing to see like what's under the surface, right? But you don't want to be known as Michael Jordan, the awesome basketball player, right? And that's it. And then when you go you have a shitty game of hoops, everyone's like, damn, do you see Michael? Holy crap, dude, he sucks now.
Yeah.
Right? Then you're attached to that sucker.
Yeah.
So the point is getting to this place of freedom when it comes to identity. And there's so much of identity and purpose that go hand in hand, right? Because who we are and what we do are like simultaneously together. So, in the book, I talk about how God defines himself, right? Yeah. I talk about how God says, I am who I am, right? Yeah. And then it's such a weird answer to such a big question.
So hard to understand.
But there's in looking at the answer and looking at other ideologies describe the same kind of thing. It's freeing just to let go of whatever comes after that. I am blank. Whatever you want to fill that with, you have to treat that as like it's a constantly moving blank space.
Yeah.
Like right now, I am podcasting with you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the deal. It's not to look at it like I'm a podcaster. I'm gonna go and like everyone else. Like it's
being present on a podcast.
Yeah, but it's realizing that blank space constantly changes. Like I'll be a dad here in another hour, right? And then just knowing that like those change, and it's a matter of just being with it. And that's the difference. Where there's so many things we want to cling on to because we want this purpose in life, and it's in our want, in our desire for having that meaning to life, that we make life meaningless.
Yeah. And
it's only in releasing it that we find meaning. And it's this really twisted, tweaked way, and that's kind of hard. Where I do a lot of the yin yang thing in the book, but it's weird because it's true. Like once you can release it, it's like you find meaning on the other side of meaningless. Yeah. And at first, it sounds like nihilism when you're talking about it, but then you realize it's like no, it's not. Because you have meaning in every moment, in everything, through everything you do. I don't care if it's washing a dish or feeding some homeless person down on the street. There's meaning in everything. You could see God, yourself, and learn about yourself in everything. Yeah. And it's like we talked about when Kelly was here, and we were talking about how Ram Dass was having this awesome meeting, right? And like just enlightening people with his message. And this old lady comes up to him afterwards, and she's like, she knew like everything he said when he was talking. And then he's like, so how did you encounter this truth? And she's like, oh, I crochet. I mean, right? Because it's the point, right? If you could just be in it and like, that's where you find the meaning, man. You connect everything by just like releasing and being. Yeah. And that's it. And it's so hard to do because we want to be stuff. We think, and it's just releasing that in a way, and it's how do you do that? Yeah. So it's a very open-ended answer, but I feel like that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't like it. I don't like hearing that answer. I'd love to hear that, like, oh, you're a writer. That's all you once you get to the, like you said, like my name, Ryan Pottle, the writer. Once I get there, then it's good.
Yeah.
But it's like no, because even me being a writer is a complete gift, whatever that is. Yeah. It's a gift that I went to school, learn how to read and write. It's a gift that I have the mind to even write stuff. Like it has nothing to do with me. Yeah. And once you can pick that apart, then you're like, oh, it comes back to that same answer that I just said. Yeah. It is open-ended. So anyway.
Well, that's beautiful, man. I've been so blessed and so changed by your expressed thought, and I've been I have become a better version of myself, and I am able to be present in a way that I know I wouldn't have been able to be present prior to knowing you and digesting your soul sustenance. And I really want to give you kind of like the last word here because it's your book, so I can't, there's not words that I can say other than like, I'm so honored to be in your life and I love you to death. And I genuinely feel closer to whatever my truth is, God, the divine, whatever it is. Like I feel more whole, because this is a journey to wholeness. Yeah. And prior to being connected to you, the fragments of what I was are slowly being mosaicked back together,
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what you and I have tried to do with the podcast and our creative efforts is like just encouraging people to seek to put themselves back together and not put that responsibility on anyone else.
Yeah.
Because you will be let down every time because it's no one else's job to become whole but yourself. It's your job and it's your gift that you've been given by wherever the fuck we came from. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
So I think that's the biggest thing is like your work in this book is it's brutally compassionate in its offering of encouraging one to help themselves,
Yeah.
And in no way do I feel like this dude has something that I'll never be able to attain.
That's good.
It's like you have tapped into something that is available to every one of us at every moment. and how you package it is so dope.
Mm.
So if there's a way you want to wrap up this cerebral safari, I want you to have the last word, and your encouragement, and where they can find it right now. And I know you're working on the Audible,
Oh
and
yeah. Yeah.
all things with that.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, first of all, Jordan, thank you, dude, for even reading it and
Oh.
helping me process it, because it is very much, um, and it's like I told you, when I got done editing it, I was emotional about it, because it
course.
was something that took me a long time to do, and it's not because I'm looking at it like, wow, look at this awesome work I put together. I'm
Yeah.
just grateful that, like, for whatever reason, it was put on my heart to write about this stuff and wrestle with this stuff, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I'm grateful for, and I don't know what it means. Whatever happens with the book happens with the book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect my kids to read it, my wife to read it, anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put it out there, and if it looks interesting, someone could pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care, and I just want it to be available. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think to leave it with that is just the encouragement to people that, like, just to connect that desire that's in there to
Mm-hmm.
want to grow and be free and be whole,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's just, there's many ways to get there. Hopefully, if you need to read about somebody who's wrestled with this stuff, yeah, read my book. It's one of many, but nothing original is in there. Everything you can learn about from other different people. I've learned about it through thousands of different books
Mm-hmm.
and everything else.
Yeah.
It's the culmination of everything that has gone on with me. So I look at it that way, where it's a gift that I'm thankful for. And, I just hope that whoever follows our podcast, whoever it is, just learns themselves, what does it take to connect to you, to connect to what you need to be whole and free,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I care about.
Mm-hmm.
I want more whole human beings in the world, because that is what it's all about to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do everything I can to be, so I can show my kids love and help them grow to be whole human beings, just like I hope to do with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I fail all the time.
Yeah.
I am someone very much still a work in progress, and I know I will always be. So I think it was a good idea to do this interview.
Yeah.
I know it's something that I am, going back and reflecting on. Working on this for 7 years is something that it's crazy to think about. So yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah. Where can we find it?
Oh, yeah, I'll post different links to it once it's out. If you want to read it, there's a website called the Godspeedbook.com. You can download the free PDF there. And Jordan and I will eventually do a podcast one of these days, once we, I guess, find it on our hearts to do one again.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody.